Hi everyone, welcome, John here. In today's video we are going to be doing some automation of sales information and data using Python and Pandas. We are going to take 4 CSV files and we're going to put them all into a data frame and then do a little bit of data analysis at the end. So if we have a quick look at the CSV files here, we can see we have an order ID, an email, first name, last name, address, country, item size and quantity. Okay, so the item size and quantity is the bit that we're going to be focusing on. What we're going to do is we're going to take these CSV files, which are somewhere in the lines of 5,000 lines long. There's 4 of them. We're going to import them all into Pandas, and we are going to then total up all of the items and sizes and quantities. So we'll see how many people across all 4 files have a hat in large. Right, so let's get going. If we do this, we can get into something. There we go. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we're going to import pandas. So as always, we do import pandas as PD, so standard. And we're also going to import the OS module. The OS module just lets Python interact with our files and folders. So what we could do is we could import each of our CSV files separately into a data frame by doing something like df is equal to pd dot read CSV and then call it the name of our file. Now this would work and it would be fine, but the problem is that if we end up with lots of different CSV files, we have to then do lots of different lines. It's a bit of a pain. So there is a better way. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the OS module to look through our folder and then import everything that is a CSV file. So to do that, we need to start by setting our variable and do os.list dir and then os.get current working directory. So what that's going to do is it will get all of the files in the current working directory that we are in. So if you see here, I've got a few Python files and here are our CSV files. Okay, so now what we can do is we can do a little loop that will go through each file in this directory and import it into a list if it is a CSV file. So the first way to do that would be to do for f in files. Ooh. And then we can do an if statement. So if f, and if we use a slicer, so the last 3 digits in the file name is equal to CSV, then CSV files dot append f. Okay, so we need to create our CSV files list. So if we do that and we create ourselves a blank list here, what we're going to do is for f in files, if the file is the last 3 characters is CSV, we're going to append it to our list. So if I go ahead and print that list out, and whatever button I just hit on my keyboard there that did that, I didn't want it. But if we print our list out here, we should get only the CSV files. Let's try that. There we go. There we are. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we've ignored all the other files in that folder. Now, this is a perfectly acceptable way to do it. However, we can use a little bit of list comprehension. We can make it a bit tidier. So what we could actually do is use a little bit of list comprehension. It's not something I've touched on before or even something that I use an awful lot, but it is really powerful and is definitely worth looking into and learning. But what we can actually do is we can call our list here, and we'll give it a slightly different name so we can see both. And we can do f for f in files. So what this is going to do is this is going to set our variable here for f in files, which is this. Then we need to do something with that, but we need our if statement. So if, then f, and we're going to look for the last 3 characters again, is equal to CSV. So what this does is it just shortens everything onto one line, but it does exactly the same thing as this. It's much neater, much tidier. So if we print that out, we should get 2 identical lists. and we do. Okay, so that's just a neater and tidier way of doing it. So I'm going to remove this as we don't need this now, and we'll just go with our list here. Okay, so now we've got our list of CSV files, which is our sales data. What we need to do now is we need to get all of that information and put that all into a data frame. What we could do is we could call each one individually, and we could put that and then put all those data frames together. But again, we can use a little bit of list comprehension to make it a lot easier for ourselves and a lot tidier. So if we could get df, which is our data frame, and we do pd.concat. Now this will join together all of the data and put it into one data frame. So we need to do pd.read CSV, and then we need to put in our f, but we need to do for f in CSV files, which is our list of our files, and we need to call ignore index, which is equal to true, and then sort is false. So I'll just explain that. Oh, I said it equals. So I'll just explain that. What we're doing here is we're calling pd.concat, which will put our data frames together all into our one data frame, and then inside our little loop here we are doing read CSV, which is f, for f in CSV files. So for every file in our CSV file list, which we created here, we're going to read it in using pd.readCSV, and then we're going to put it together into our data frame. And these last two little these two little arguments just make it easier for us and puts it all together nicely. So if I've got that right, we should be able to do print df.head and get the top of our data frame, unless I've messed it up. There we go. Right, okay, so now we've got all of our data into our one data frame from all of our files. What we could do is we could just see what the length is, so we can see how many lines we've got. Len, not lem. So we've got 2,499 lines. Okay. So the next thing that we would want to do is we would want to check the data types that's been imported into our files. So obviously we were dealing with integers for the sales value, so we need those to be integers the whole way through, otherwise we won't be able to add them together. So to do that, I would do print and then df.dtypes, like that. So this should tell us what the data type of each of our columns is. And we can see right away that the order ID is an integer and the quantity is also an integer. Sometimes that might not come through to you as an integer, and what you can do is you can change that, and I'll show you how you would do that. If any of your columns don't come through and they're the wrong data type, you can call them quite easily and change them around. So you would do df.quantity, because that is the column here, and we would just do df.qty.asType, and then change it to whatever type we wanted it to be. In this case it's already an integer, so we don't need to do it. Another thing that we might want to do is we might want to drop any empty lines or any empty rows, and to do that we would do df.dropNA, and we would call in place is equal to true, and what that means is that once it's done this, it's going to overwrite the data frame with the data that we had in there. So if we save that and run that, should get no errors, that's good. And if we print the length of it here, we'll see if we've removed any lines. I don't think we have, because our data was all generated by a fake data mockaroo.com, which generates data for you, so all the data is intact. So we don't need to do that. But that you might find that you have empty rows that you'll need to remove. Okay, so now that we have all of our data in one data frame we've checked the data types, and we have our quantity, which is an integer, which means we can add it up together. What we need to do is we need to basically create a pivot table like you would in Excel with our information. So to do that, we need to create a new data frame, and I'm going to call this one the item pivot. And we would call pd.pivot table, and then the data frame that we want to create the pivot table from, which is df, and then we need to say what the index we want to be. Now, because our data has each of the items has the item name and a size, and we want those split up, so we're going to have two indexes. And I'll show you what that looks like when we've done. So we want to call the item and the size as our indexes, and that was these columns here, item and size. If you didn't have this one, say everything was just one thing, you would only need the item or whatever it is. But we have two. Because if we didn't have that, we would just get all the items added together, and we'd be ignoring the specific sizes of each of the items, which we do want. And then we need to work out the values, which is the quantity, so that is going to be the one that's going to be added up together. And then we need to call the func of sum. Now what that's going to do is it's going to take the quantity and it's going to add them all together. So if we print that out and see what we get. Oh, I've done something wrong. This should be values, not value. There we go. And print, because I can't type. There we go. I'll make this a bit bigger. I'll show you. So what we've done, if you can still see the pivot table line, so what we've done is we've created a new data frame, and we've done pd.pivot table with our data frame. The index, which is the two columns that we chose of item and size. So here it is, item and size. And then the quantity, and we've done a sum of those quantities. All the quantities are very similar because it's fake data, and that's just how it tends to generate it unless you tell it otherwise. But you can see here we've got gloves, large, medium, small, extra large, and our quantities. So what we could do is, if that's all the information that we needed, we could we could export this back out to Excel or something like that, and then we could send it round. So you could import in hundreds of CSV files, total up all of the sales on them, and then have one file at the end with that, as opposed to having to do it manually, which would take you forever. What we'll do now is we'll just have a look at some of the other data as well that was in there. We know that there was a country value. So what we could do is we could find out where most of the sales are going to. A little bit of analysis. So if we do another pivot table, and we call this country pivot, and then we do the same thing again, pd.pivot table. I really cannot type today. Then our data frame, and then the index was, and I'm just going to check, the column was called country, and then values of quantity again, so we can see how many units are going to which specific country, and again the function is a sum. Okay, so this is going to do that for us, and we can then print out the country pivot. And if we do that, and if we do that, we can see that these are the countries of where the most quantities are going to. So to get either of these data frames out to Excel or to CSV, we just simply call whichever data frame we want to do, and then .to Excel, and then the file name that you want to put it to. So it's to item sold.xlsx, but I'm going to do CSV. I find it easier. So we'll do it to CSV and then .csv, and save that, and we'll just put this in here, print saved to file, so we got some output. We can see what's going on. Let's comment out the CSV print thing. There we go. Let's run that. Save to file. So if we look at our file here, you can see that we've got all the information there. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you found this useful in some way. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you want to know any more about this, or if you're struggling with something, maybe I can help out. Cheers, bye.